Okay. So what we have decided that we would do is we would go through the verses of uḷḷavu one by one. So for this first time I'm joining your meeting at that time, I will talk about the very first verse of uڵḷavu, the first maṅgalam verse. Bhagavan originally wrote this verse as a two-line verse. That is, the last two lines of the verse is what he wrote first. What he says in the last two lines is uḻḷaporu, uḻḷaleva, uḻḷattē, uḻḷapaḍi, uḻḷadē, uḻllal-aṟa. What that means is, first there's a question. Uḻḷaporu, uḻḷaporu, uḻḷaevaṉ. Uḻḷaporu, uḻḷa means what is actually existing. Poru means substance, or reality. So the real substance, the actual substance, the existing substance. Uḻḷal means thinking. Evaṉ means either how or who. So what Bhagavan is asking there, who can and how to think of or meditate upon the existing substance? Then in the next sentence he answers that question. What is, how we can think of it? We can think of it, he says, uḻḷattē. Uḻḷattē means in the heart. The heart is that uḻḷaporu, the existing substance. Uḻḷaporu, for anyone who doesn't know, is more familiar with Sanskrit than Tamil. Uḻḷaporu is the Tamil equivalent of sattvastu. Poru has very much the same meaning as vastu, the substance of the reality, the substance that is, the existing substance. So how to think of this existing substance? This existing substance, Bhagavan says later when he adds the first two lines, he says it's the heart. The heart means what we really are, our own self. So to be in the heart, uḻḷattē means in the heart, uḻḷapaḍi means as it is. uḻḷadē means being. Being in the heart as it is meditating. And then the final, uḻḷal is meditating. Final word, uṇar, means be aware of that or experience that. Bhagavan is telling us this is what we should do. He's giving the direct instruction in the final word. So that is what he composed at first, and that was decided that would be the maṅgalam, the auspicious introduction to the text, and then it would go straight on to verse 1. But when this was seen, someone suggested that the text should be shown to Padacchēdam, who didn't know much Tamil and wasn't familiar with Tamil prosody, his first objection was, why is there just a two-line? All the other verses are four lines. Why does it start with a two-line verse? So Bhagavan and Murugan explained to him that this is it's the same meter, but it's a two-line version of the same meter. But Bhagavan said, okay, yes, we'll make it into a four-line verse. Because by adding the first two lines, Bhagavan was able to expand or clarify the meaning of, particularly the first question, how to meditate on that existing substance. So Bhagavan added the first two lines, and then Kavirantha's next objection was, how can you have a maṅgalam verse, an auspicious introduction, without even mentioning God? So he looked through the whole work, and he found only one verse he found with the name of God, Mahesam. So he said this would be a more suitable maṅgalam verse. So Bhagavan Murugan decided, okay, we'll make that as a second maṅgalam verse. And so that's how there are now two maṅgalam verses. And then Bhagavan wrote one more verse to fill up the gap. I can't now remember, I did know at one time, probably I've got it written down somewhere, what is the verse that Bhagavan added. But anyway, though Kavirganta's objections were not really very appropriate, thanks to him, we've got 1.5 more verses in uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, so we have to be grateful to him for that. So, what Bhagavan said when he added the first 2 lines, he first starts off with a question. Uڵḷadu, aladu, uḻḷa-uṇarvu, uḻḷadō. There are various ways in which we can interpret this first sentence. The first word is what the whole text is about, uڵḷadu. Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, 40 verses on uڵḷadu. Uڵḷadu means what is. It's a participial noun. It means that which is or what is, what exists, what actually exists. Throughout this verse, Bhagavan is using words based on the root word uḻ. Uḻ means to be, and it also means inside. So, in the sense of to be, uڵḷadu means that which is. It's a third person neuter participial noun. So it means that which is. Because it's third person neuter, in Tamil, third person neuter participial nouns can also act as gerund. So it can also mean being. In the sense, being obviously isn't an action, but if it were a verb denoting action, like walking or talking, it would be the action of doing that. So the action, in inverted commas, of being, the state of being. But basically what exists. So that uڵḷadu is a word that denotes, it's a word used a lot in Tamil literature. It denotes what actually exists, the ultimate reality. And what is that uڵḷadu? Bhagavan says very clearly in Nanya, in the 7th paragraph of Nanya, he says, Yatharthamai uڵḷadu atmasarupam andre. Yatharthamai means actually, really, what really exists is only atmasarupa. Atmasarupa means the own form of oneself. That's our own real nature. So what Bhagavan means by uڵḷadu, he's talking about ourselves, but he doesn't mention that directly in the first word. It's implied there, but he's talking in a very abstract way. So he just talks about what exists. The next word, aladu, has two types of meaning. The first type of meaning is an aversive conjunction that means something like if not, or if not, or it's basically without or if not. That's what it basically means. So without uڵḷadu, or if there was not uڵḻadu, if uڵḻadu didn't exist, is the first clause. Then the next word is uḻḷa-uṇarvu. That's again, it's a compound word. Uḻḷa, as in uḻḷaporu, uḻḷa means what is. Uṇarvu means awareness or consciousness. So the awareness that is. It also, though grammatically it means the awareness that is, or the existing awareness, it implies also awareness of being. But uڵḷa also means actual awareness. Bhagavan is not talking about, because awareness comes in different forms. When the ego rises, the ego seems to be aware. So the ego is a type of awareness, but the nature of the ego is to be aware of things other than itself. It's never aware of itself alone at any time. It's always aware of itself, but it's aware of itself plus other things, and it identifies itself with other things. That is what Bhagavan calls in Tamil suttu or suttarivu. Suttu means pointing or showing. So the awareness that shows, that is the awareness of other things. So that is the ego. But the uڵḷa-uṇarvu is the awareness that exists. The suttu-uṇarvu, which is the nature of the ego, the suttarivu, is only in waking and dream we're aware of things other than ourselves. In sleep we're not aware of any phenomena whatsoever. But we are aware I slept. So we're aware of our own existence in sleep, but if you try to describe what it is, what is the state of sleep, we can't describe it, because there's nothing nothing describable or conceivable in sleep. There's just our awareness of ourselves. That's all that is there. That awareness of ourselves is not a uḷḷadu, it's not pointing at anything, it's not showing anything. It is the being awareness, the uḷḷa-v-uṇarvu. So it's a very important distinction. Bhagavan doesn't in this context mention that distinction, but in other contexts he makes this distinction between aladu or uḷḷadu, which means awareness, in the sense of uḻḷa-v-uṇarvu, the real awareness, the actual awareness, which is the awareness that we experience at all times, and the uḷḷadu, the awareness of other things, which we experience only in waking and dreaming, and which is the nature of the ego. So he's talking here about the real awareness. What the real awareness, because in order to be aware of anything, whenever we're aware of anything or of nothing, we're aware that I am aware of that. So awareness always entails self-awareness. All that we can say about sleep, for example, which is a state in which we experience only pure uḷḷa-v-uṇarvu, the pure awareness, is I slept, I was there. We're aware of our own existence in sleep. So self-awareness is the nature of the uḻḷa-v-uṇarvu. And it also, uḻḷa-v-uṇarvu implies awareness of being. So it's awareness of our own being, awareness of ourselves. So, and then the final word of that first sentence is uḻḷadō. uḻḷadō is an interrogative form of the third person singular form, means the singular form of the verb uḻ, which is also uḻḷadu. So uڵḷadu can be a noun meaning what is, or it can be a verb meaning it is. In this case it means it is, but because the O is added on the end, it's uḻḷadō, it means is it. So basically what that sentence means is, if there was not uḻḷadu, could there be awareness, basically? Could there be an actual awareness, or could there be awareness of being? So the uḻḷadu, what actually exists, is ourself. So that is I. The awareness that we have of our own existence, that is sometimes described by Bhagavan as am. So if there wasn't an I, could there be am? Could there be the awareness of our being if we didn't actually exist? Or in a more abstract way of expressing it there, could there be any awareness if there wasn't if what is was not? If there wasn't anything that actually exists, could there be any actual awareness? That is one meaning of that sentence. But because the word aladu can mean if not or without, that's what meaning is discussed. The other meaning is except as or other than. So another meaning of the sentence is, in the first sense of the sentence, Bhagavan is establishing that there is an absolute reality. There is something that actually exists. And only the reason why we can conclude that something exists is because we are aware. If something didn't exist, if we didn't exist, could we be aware? So there can't be awareness without what actually exists. But then the question can arise, are these two different things? Is there uḻḷadu and uṇarvu, are they two different things? That's where the second meaning of aladu comes in. Can there be, the other meaning of that sentence is, other than or except as uḻḷadu, can uḻḻa-v-uṇarvu exist? Can the awareness exist except as uḻḷadu? In other words, uḻḷadu is itself uṇarvu. That is what Bhagavan says in verse 23 of Padacchēdam, in which he says, uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, to know uḻḷadu, uṇarvu there in Mayin, since there is no other awareness other than uḻḷadu, to know uḻḷadu, uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu. Uḷḷadu is itself uṇarvu. And then, so the first part of that verse, Bhagavan is talking in an abstract way about uڵḷadu and about uṇarvu. But in the last line he says, uṇardē nāmai uḷḻam. That means that uṇarvu is we, is ourselves. He makes it very, very clear. I mean, to emphasize the oneness of that uṇarvu is what we actually are. He, instead of saying uṇarvu is I or is we, he says it am we, or uḻḷam. Uḻḷam means I in the sense of first person plural. So if you would make it singular, it would be what he'd be saying there is awareness am I. So he's using usually we'd say awareness is I, but to make it clear that the awareness is only that first person awareness, he uses the first person verb along with it. So in that verse of uḷḷa, Bhagavan is saying that uṇarvu, awareness is what is. Awareness and what is are not two different things. There's not an existence and something else that is aware of existence. So if there was something, if uḻḷadu and uṇarvu were two different things, you'd have what exists and what is aware. If what is aware is not what exists, it doesn't exist, so it can't be aware of what exists. And if what is we're not aware, there couldn't be any awareness, because what is has to be awareness. So uḻḷadu is uṇarvu. Existence is awareness. The two are one and the same, and they are ourselves. They're what we actually are. So what he says in that verse, he implies in the second meaning of this verse. I mean, it was the first sentence of this verse. The reason that generally this is taken as a secondary meaning of that, because first you have to establish that something actually exists before you can raise the question of whether what actually exists is the same as awareness or other than awareness. So generally in all philosophical texts, all religious texts that try to prove the existence of some reality, they start with the world. How can this world exist if it doesn't have some source, if it hasn't been created, or the question is put in various different ways according to people's beliefs. But people, whenever anyone tries to establish that there is something that actually is, or that there's a God, or whatever our belief may be, they always start with the world. But Bhagavan, in this verse, he doesn't mention the world at all. He doesn't even mention awareness of the world. He mentions only awareness of being. So what Bhagavan indicates in this verse,
what I was saying is, Bhagavan in this sentence, without bringing in the world or the existence of anything else, or even our perception of the existence of anything else, just on the basis of our own awareness, he establishes that there is something that actually exists. And later on he makes it clear that what actually exists is only ourselves. That which is aware is that which is. Later in the first verse of the text of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, he establishes the existence of a what he there calls the one first thing, which is the same as this uḷḷadu. There he establishes on the basis, he begins with the words nam ullahum kandala. I mean, the first word nam means we, ullahum means world, kandala because we see the world. It is the best option is to accept that there's one thing, one substance, which has the power to be seen as many things, the power to become many things. So, though Bhagavan does mention the world in that verse, what he's basing it on is not the world as such, but our perception of the world. So, and it begins with the word Nāṛ. So Bhagavan always pointing out we don't actually need anything else to show our own existence, because we are clearly aware of our existence. So whether anything else exists or not, everything else could be an illusion. But even to be aware of an illusion, we must exist. So whether what we are aware of, the objects we're aware of, are real or illusory, we must exist in order to be aware of them. So in this first verse, he doesn't even bother with the appearance of phenomena. He deals just with awareness. And we don't need to be aware of phenomena in order to be aware. In waking and dream, we're aware of phenomena. In sleep, we're aware of no phenomena, but we're still aware. So awareness is all we need to establish that something exists. So that's the import of that first sentence. Basically two meanings. Then the rest of the first two lines is not a separate sentence. It is two clauses that he adds to the first sentence of the last two lines. That is the question, uḻḷaporu, uḻḷaleva. Who can or how to meditate on the reality? To make that more clear, he adds two clauses. The first clause is an adverbial clause, a clause that gives a reason why he says that. That reason is, he says, uḻḷaporu, uḷḷalāṟa, uḻḷattē, uḻḷadāl. That means uḻḷaporu is the same as uڵḷadu. It's again the same word we saw earlier. It means the existing substance. Since the existing substance exists in the heart without thought, that's the reason he gives. And so that's the adverbial clause. And then he adds a relative clause to describe that uḻḷaporu, which he mentions in the main clause, which is uḻḷameṉu. uḻḷameṉu, which is called heart. So basically what Bhagavan is saying there, firstly he's saying that uḻḷaporu is heart. That means it is ourself. And uḻḷam, generally in Tamil, it means heart, or what is inside, the core of ourself. But it also can be interpreted in a different way, because the normal first person plural form of the verb ul is uḻḷam. But in poetry, that first person plural form can be contracted as uḻḷam. So uḻḻam can mean as in we are. There we is used not in the sense of a plural, but in the sense of an inclusive form of the first person. Because Bhagavan is talking to us. Bhagavan often uses the word Nāṛ. Nāṛ, in Tamil, there are two forms of we. There's Nāṇgal, which is, if I'm talking to you and I say Nāṇgal, I'm not including you. I'm including myself and some other people, but I'm excluding you. So Nāṇgal is the exclusive form of we. Nāṛ is an inclusive form. So if I say Nāṛ, I'm including you along with me. So Bhagavan often used the word Nāṛ as an inclusive form of the first person. The first person is actual singular. There's only one soul. There's only one I. But because in our experience there seems to be a multiplicity, he uses this inclusive form, so he addresses us using the word we. Sometimes he even says, like in the paragraph of uḷḷav-uṇarvu, I think the 14th paragraph of uḻḷav-uṇarvu, where he talks about happiness, he says there's no happiness in the things of the world. We think that there's happiness in them because of our avivaka. As if Bhagavan himself he said avivaka, including himself, but obviously Bhagavan doesn't have avivaka, but he comes down to our level. So that's how Bhagavan often spoke, using the word Nāṛ. So when he uses uḻḷam, meaning we are, it is not meant as a plural, it is meant as an inclusive form of the first person singular. So basically what uḻḷameṉu, uḻḷaporu can either mean the uḻḷaporu, which is called heart, or the uḻḷaporu, which is called evaṉ. In other words, it's ourself. Both meanings amount to the same thing, because heart is, we are the heart. Our essence of what is innermost in us is the core of ourself. That is what we actually are. So that uḻḷaporu is not something other than ourself, it is ourself. He's again emphasizing there. So since that, it is the heart and it's in the heart. This is a very metaphorical way of speaking. When it's said the reality is in the heart, it's a metaphorical way of saying it is the heart. What is inside of us what is inside the core of our being is the core of our being. The essence of ourself is the essence of ourself. It's not literally one thing inside another thing. It's just a metaphorical way of saying it. So he said that exists in the heart. That implies that is the heart. And the important words there are uḻḷa-aṛa. Uḻḷa means thinking. Aṛa means without thinking. It's beyond thought. Because it's only when the mind rises, when the mind comes out, it projects thoughts. When the mind subsides back into the heart as in sleep, there are no thoughts. So what is actually real is without thought. It's only the thoughts arise only along with the mind. So because it is without thought, it's beyond the reach of thought. We cannot think of that. As we can think of things other than ourselves. When we think of ourselves, if we think only of ourselves, turn our attention back within, the mind subsides. So we cannot think of it as such. So that then explains that first sentence, why he says, who can or how to think of that? People think we can think, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. That Bhagavan said, that is not real Brahma Dhyana. That is just a mental activity. We've got two things there. There's an I and there's a Brahman. I am this Brahman. According to Bhagavan, I am this or I am that is ego. The real nature of Brahman is only nan, aham, I am I. Because to say I am this, we are identifying with ourselves with something other than ourselves. Why to say I am this or I am that? If as soon as you say this or that, you're referring to something as if it's something other than yourself. Even to use the word Brahman, when we talk about Brahman, we think of something very, Brahman actually, the word derives from a root meaning, what is expanded, what is vast, what is... So when we talk about Brahman in the third person, we tend to think of something other than ourselves. But so that's why Bhagavan said what Brahman actually experiences as itself is not I am Brahman, but just I am I. That's why Bhagavan said the greatest of all the Mahavakyas is not to be found in any of the Vedas. It's a sentence in the Old Testament of the Bible. I am that I am. That's what God, when Moses asked God who he is, God replied, I am that I am. That is, I am I. Nan. That is the ultimate truth, Bhagavan said. That is the best expression of the experience of the ultimate reality. That won't be understood by any of the Jews or Christians or Muslims who take the Bible as their original, the Old Testament as their original text. But Bhagavan has pointed out that is the one important thing there. I am that I am. That is the ultimate truth. I am only I, nothing but I. So, in this verse, Bhagavan packs a huge amount of meaning into this verse. And since that reality is something that is beyond thought, how can we meditate upon it? The word uḷḷal is, as I said earlier, the root ul has two meanings. One meaning is to be, or to exist. The other meaning is inside. In the sense of inside, it derives another verb, which is uḻḷu. Uḻḷu means thinking or any type of mental activity. Thinking, revering, investigating. So when Bhagavan says uḻḷa-levaṉ, uluparu uḻḷa-levaṉ, how to think of it, how to investigate it, how to revere it, how to worship it. All those meanings are there in that word. And he says, the final sentence, he says how he answers that question, how we can meditate on it. The only way is uḻḷattē, in my heart, again in my heart, uḻḷapaḍi, as it is, uḻḷadē, being as it is in my heart. That alone is meditating on it, investigating it, worshipping it, or whatever we want to take it. By saying uḻḷattē and uḻḷapaḍi, uḻḷattē means in my heart. But since we ourselves of a heart, it's not one thing inside another. When the mind subsides, we remain as we are then in ourselves, metaphorically speaking. So uḻḷattē is a metaphorical way of saying being as ourselves. uḻḷapaḍi means as it is. As we really are, if we remain as we really are, how are we really? Firstly, we're uḻḷadu. Secondly, we're uṇarvu, we're what is aware. And thirdly, we're uḷḷalāṟa, we're without thoughts. So being as it is means being as just as being, as uḻḷadu, just as awareness, not awareness of other things, but uḻḷa-v-uṇarvu, awareness of being, awareness of ourselves, self-awareness, and without thought. That means without rising as an ego to think anything. That is what he means by uḻḷapaḍi. So just being as we are. In other words, the only way to know Brahman is to be Brahman. The only way to know ourselves is to be ourselves. As he says in another verse of Padacchēdam, verse 26, Tānai ilatale panai arudala. That means only being as oneself is knowing oneself. We can't know what we really are. We can't know Brahman except by being Brahman. Because there's no duality there. You can't have a separate entity to know Brahman or to know uḻḷadu. It is only uḻḷadu alone can know uḻḷadu. Because uḻḷadu is uṇarvu. So Bhagavan, he without bringing in any extraneous concepts there about the world, about the existence of the world, not even ego he mentions here. He just mentions the reality. Because this is what the whole text is about. But after writing this, he then writes 40 verses. In most of those 40 verses, he's talking about one thing. He's not talking just about the uḻḷadu, he's talking about ahande, the ego, which he describes in so many ways, as the first person, as the one thing which is the root of the dyads and the triads. He refers to ego in so many ways. Why he writes so much about the ego? Because the ego is what obstructs us being as we are. When we rise as the ego, we never actually cease to be what we are, but we seem to have ceased to be what we are. Even now we are Brahman. Even now we are that Paripurna Vastu, that uḻḷaporu. But because we seem to have risen as the ego, we seem to be unaware of what we really are. So the whole problem, but Bhagavan is a master physician. If you go to a good doctor, the doctor won't be concerned just about your symptoms. What is the root cause of the symptoms? The doctor just treats your symptoms. Some other symptoms will crop up, and you'll come back to the doctor. Bhagavan is a doctor who doesn't want patients to come to him. He wants, if a patient comes to him, he wants to cure them once and for all, so they never have to come to him again. So Bhagavan he goes right to the root. What is the root cause of all the problems? The root cause of all the problems is the ego. So if we come to Bhagavan and say, Bhagavan, can I do meditation, can I do japa, can I do this, can I do that? Bhagavan will say, yes, you do. So if we come to Bhagavan and say, I've done all these things, but I'm still suffering, then Bhagavan said, who asked you to do all these things? The problem is you have risen as an ego. You have a problem. So you alone have to, the only solution to the problem is you have to subside. You have to give up rising as this ego. Then all this, the problem is described in so many ways in philosophy and in scriptures and everything as avidya, jnana, so many things. But who has avidya? Who has jnana? Who is the ignorant one? Who is under the spell of Maya? It is I. This rising I, this ego. Not that there are two. There's only one I, but I seems to be in two forms. There's the being I, the ḷuḷľaporu, and there's the rising I. There's our being and our rising. The ego is our rising. Uḷḷadu, the reality is our being. So we have to cease rising. How do we rise? We rise by grasping forms, he says. By allowing our attention to grasp things. Those things don't actually exist there. They come into existence only when our mind rises. It projects all these things and grasps them. So the ego is so enamored by all these phenomena of experiences. We're constantly looking for things to experience, because only by grasping these things we're able to rise, we're able to stand. And in verse 25 he says, uḷḷaporuṇ, grasping form, it comes into being. uḷḷaporuṇ, grasping form, it stands. uḻḷaporuḻ, grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes. That's the nature of the ego. uḻḷavitu, leaving one form, grasps another form. So the ego cannot survive without grasping things, without being aware of things other than itself. The ego is he says, uḷḷattē, it's a formless phantom. So it can't rise and grasp things. It's got no hands or anything to grasp. How to grasp things? It grasps in its awareness. By being aware of other things, we are grasping them. So the only solution to get rid of this ego, he says, tēdinal okum pidikam. That is, it seems to exist so long as it's aware of other things. But if it seeks itself, tēdinal, that means it saw, okum pidikam, it takes flight. So this ego is a formless phantom. We may be afraid that there's ghosts hanging around our house, or we may be walking through a dark wood and feel there are ghosts all around us. But ghosts seem to exist only when we don't look at them. If we look very carefully at the ghost, we just see it's a shadow. It's nothing. So this ego seems to exist only because we don't look at it. If we look at it, there's no such thing to be found. There's no such thing as mind or ego. So Bhagavan's teaching is so simple. We could go on talking about it forever, but actually we're just talking about the same thing, because he said there is one reality, one thing that actually exists, that is ourself. There's one problem, or there seems to be one problem, we rise as an ego. In whose view we rise as an ego? Brahman never complains about any ego. Our Atma-swarupa, our real self, is never troubled by the rising of any ego. The ego rises only in its own view. That is why it is Maya. Maya means what doesn't exist. When Ya Ma, Bhagavan used to say, Ya is a feminine form of what? What? Ma is not. What is not? That is Maya. That is the ego. But it seems to exist so long as it seems to be aware of other things. If it turns its attention back to itself, it disappears, and then what always is, always is. Nan, I am I. There's no I am this or I am that. So So I think I spoke enough. If any of you would like to ask any questions.
That was a good discussion on the Mangalam verse, and I guess we got a bonus on verse 25 also.
Yeah.
That's the form, the ego grasping form.
If we go through the verses of uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu, you will find most, if we do one verse a month, you will find most months I'll be talking about verse 25 and verse 26.
Right.
There Bhagavan is talking about the real culprit, the real problem we're up against with this ego. Because this ego comes in verse 26, eṉum. If the ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. Enetum. Ego doesn't exist, nothing exists. The ego is everything. Therefore, investigating what it is giving up everything.
And I like what you said the other day, and both of us were chatting, how most of the other scriptures sort of just discuss that all is Brahman.
Yes.
And just sort of pretty much stop right there. And it's Bhagavan who really takes it to the next level, talking about the cost of why, if all is Brahman, why am I not perceiving that state? And it's Bhagavan who really nails it down, that it's the ego is the culprit. And then basically takes us to then all those verses, the discussion on that, the culprit, like you said, is a physician diagnosing the root problem and then hitting it hard.
In the first verse of the text, the main text, Bhagavan ends by saying, eṉum everything is only he who is one. So both from that is saying everything is Brahman, basically. But that's just a superficial introduction. He then goes deeper and deeper and deeper in the second verse itself. He brings in this culprit, the ego. He talks about the arguments about whether there are three things or one thing. Three things means God, world, and soul. Whether these are three separate things or whether they're all one thing. All these arguments are possible only so long as the ego exists. And the state in which ego doesn't exist, that is agreeable to everyone. That is the real state. And then he says, and in the third verse he says, the state without the ego, that is agreeable to all. So he very, very quickly gets down to the real problem, the ego.
Sure, go ahead. This is a question.
Michael, thanks for doing the speech there. Much appreciated. My name is Ram, and the quick question I got for you is, you mentioned about looking at ego, and it's a shadow, and it's going to disappear soon after you pierce through it. How exactly do we do it? I know the who am I technique. However, I wanted to get your explanation on how that goes. As I told the group several times, a lot of the things in the world seems to be too real, and at the same time, I know what the goal is. So how do we pierce into the ego and get a comprehension that it's just a shadow? Once you look at it, it's going to disappear.
Well, that's it. Once we look at it, we have to look at it. But the problem is, we are not ready to look at it. Looking at it is not difficult. The reason we find it difficult to look at ourselves is because we now take ourselves to be this ego. I take myself to be, I am Michael. Michael is not the ego. The one who says I am Michael, that is the ego. So because I'm so attached to this, even when this, finally one day, after some years, this Michael is the name of the body. This Michael is going to die, he's going to be burnt or buried or whatever becomes of him. In the normal course of events, having left one, leaving one form, it will grasp another form. This ego, that's the nature of the ego. It's not ready to let go. It keeps on grasping something or other because it wants to survive. When I say it, I'm talking about us. That is, we want to survive. We want to continue. We experience so many wonderful phenomena in this world. We may experience suffering and everything. Within that suffering, we experience some iotas of pleasure. But basically, we're enamored with phenomena. We're enamored with the experience of phenomena. We fall asleep every night when we're too tired to continue attending to phenomena. But again in the morning we rise, we reject things, or even in the middle of our sleep in the night we dream or we project things. That is this desire to experience phenomena. That is the Vishaya vasanas. Vishaya means the phenomena, the things other than ourselves. The taste, the liking to experience things other than ourselves, that is the problem. So how do we weaken that desire to attend to other things? Bhagavan says there is no shortcut. The only way is nobody has succeeded without perseverance. We have to constantly turn our attention back to ourselves. Trying to turn our attention back to ourselves, for most of us, it's like if you've got a big balloon full of air and you're trying to push it under the water. You push it, you can push it down to a certain extent, then it pops up this way. You push it down again, it pops up that way. It will always be, because of the air inside, because of its buoyancy, you cannot push it far under the water. It will always slip out of your grasp and pop up again. That is the nature of the ego. However many times we turn our attention back to ourselves, it will again jump out to grasp things, because it's doing it for its own survival. So we have to, that is because of our strong Vishaya vasana, our strong taste, our strong liking to experience things other than ourselves. Even when we're suffering, we're not ready to let go. Even if we get some very, very painful illness, we still want doctors to treat us, to help us overcome this so that we can live for some more years. And our desire for this state, well, basically, all this is just a dream according to Bhagavan. It seems very real to us, but it's all a dream. And our desire to continue experiencing this is so strong. We have to weaken this desire. How this desire has become so strong? Who is responsible for it? We are. We have cultivated this liking to be aware of things other than ourselves, to constantly experience more and more things. So we have to reverse this. We've cultivated the liking to be aware of other things. We have to, in order to overcome that liking, which we've cultivated through so many janmas, we now have to begin turning in the opposite direction, turning back towards ourselves, and slowly, slowly cultivating the liking just to be what we really are, not to rise to be aware of other things. That liking to be what we really are is sometimes called sattvasana. The liking or the inclination or the urge just to be. And it's also called swatma bhakti, the love for one's own soul. That doesn't come easily, because when it's only got strong, the strength of our desire to go outwards is inversely proportional to the strength of our liking to go inwards. So we have to cultivate this liking to go inwards by slow, patient practice. It's only by persistently trying. It's not difficult to attend to ourselves. Everyone knows I. We all know I. But it seems to be difficult because whenever we turn our attention back towards ourselves, some thought pops up, something we find some excuse for, there's something more important to do now. Throughout the day, where we have so many important things, we think we take them to be important, but most of the things we attend to throughout the day, for example, from the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go to sleep at night, we think countless thoughts. How many of those thoughts are really necessary? We can say, oh, I've got to earn a living, I've got to pay the mortgage, I've got to this or that. I mean, we find so many excuses. But actually, if we analyze it, even if we do have to earn a living, support our family, pay the mortgage or whatever, how much thought does all these things require. For example, if you drive a car to work every day, by the time you reach work, do you remember everything you did while driving? No, the driving goes on almost automatically. Most of the time while you're driving to work, you're thinking of problems in the office, problems at home, this or that. There'll be something else you're thinking of, which is not immediately necessary. All that's immediately necessary is to drive the car. That requires very, very little of your attention. So throughout most of the day, we're thinking many thoughts which are of not immediate necessity. We can say probably 90% of our attention is squandered. I mean, it's probably more than 90%, but just say 90% just for a random figure of our attention is squandered on unnecessary thoughts. We're constantly thinking of things which aren't really immediately necessary. If all that time that we spend, if we replace every unnecessary thought with self-attentiveness, we will be spending most of our day being self-attentive, and only a small proportion of our attention is needed for all the things that we have to do in a day. So, but the reason we don't do that, in practice, most of us, we hardly spend 1 or 2% of the day in being self-attentive. We may set aside 20 minutes morning and evening for meditation or something, but in those 20 minutes, what are we actually doing? How much of that 20 minutes are we really attending to ourselves? So that's why Bhagavan said, meditation isn't just sitting with your eyes closed. What meditation really is attending to yourself. And we don't have to sit with our eyes closed to attend to ourselves. Even now while we're talking, we can have that tenuous current of self-awareness, of self-attentiveness, can be going on there in the background. Because who is talking? Who is listening? I am. So that I is always there at the background, but we overlook the background. But when you say, when we see a film on the screen, we are always seeing the screen, but we're not noticing the screen at all, because we're so interested in the story, in the film or whatever it is, but we're overlooking the screen, which is what we're actually seeing, and we're noticing only the pictures that are flicking across it. So it's a matter of what we do with our attention, whether we want to attend to all these phenomena, all the pictures on the screen, or whether we want to attend to the screen itself. The screen in this case is ourselves. We are the screen, the background, on which all these things, all these phenomena are projected. It's projected within our own mind. Just like in a dream, we project all these things, where a dream is experienced in our own mind. It's also this vast universe, but it extends for so many thousands and thousands of light years, that was started with a big bang so many billions of years ago, or whatever we choose to believe. But I mean, this is the popular modern scientific view of the world. According to Bhagavan, all this is in your own mind. It's all just a dream. It's all just our own mental projection. You mentioned earlier that all this seems to be so real. Why does it seem to be real? While we're dreaming, the dream seems to be real. Only after we wake up we recognize it was a dream. While we are dreaming, it seems to be real. Why? Because among all the phenomena that we project and experience in a dream, there is a body which we take to be ourselves. Because we are real, the body which we experience as if it were ourselves seems to us to be real. And because that body is part of the world, the whole world seems to be real. So we project our own reality onto the body, and via the body we project our own reality onto the world. So why this world seems to be so real? Because we take a body in this world to be ourselves. We experience this body as ourselves. Because we experience it as ourselves, we experience it as real, because we are real. Because this body is real, the body can't be real and the whole of the rest of the world be unreal. If the body is real, the whole world is real. So because we superimpose our own reality upon this body, we thereby experience the whole world as if it's real. So long as we're experiencing it, as soon as our connection with that body, that dream body, is broken by waking up, we no longer take that, we become, as soon as we wake up from a dream, okay, sometimes we're a bit confused when we wake up. If we have a particularly vivid dream, we wake up not quite sure where we are. But after a few moments we recognize, oh, I'm sleeping in this room, and we recall everything, and maybe, oh, that was all just a dream. We have no doubt that we don't think, oh, was that real, or did I travel to some other world to see all that? No, we know that it was all just our own figment of our imagination. We are able to recognize that as soon as our connection with that dream body is broken. Why we cannot recognize that this world is likewise a dream is because we're now experiencing this dream. We're now taking this body to be ourselves. When death comes, and our connection with this body is over, it'll be just like waking up from a dream. But the trouble is, what we generally, when we wake up from a dream, we wake up from one dream into another dream. So when this body dies, and we leave this body, leaving one form will grasp another form, will again project some other world, another dream will project, and the story will continue. Until the story will continue so long as we want it to continue. So we have to decide for ourselves, do we want this to continue? If we're honest with ourselves, yes, we do want it to continue. We all want moksha, but not quite yet. Moksha means the destruction of everything, the destruction of ourselves and all that we experience. Are we ready for that? Bhagavan once said, everyone comes here saying they come only for moksha. If I show a little sample of moksha, all the crows will fly away and I'll be left sitting here alone. That means we are not really sincere. We do have some liking for moksha. We do have some feeling this present state really is not satisfactory, so we want something better. But we are not yet ready to let go. So we continue clinging to this.
Thank you.
Michael, I had a question very similar to Ram's.
Yeah.
And after your excellent explanation, I think 99% of it is addressed. But I still ask that 1%.
Yeah.
You have said how turning your attention to the real self, or self-remembrance or self-attention continuously.
You need not even turn your attention to the real self, because we don't know that real self now, do we? No. I know I am Michael. So who is this I? This I, the one who rises as I am Michael, is the ego. Turn your attention to the ego. That's all Bhagavan says. You need not turn your attention to the real self, because supposing you're walking along a path with Bhagavan in the dark, and you suddenly see a snake lying on the path. Bhagavan knows it's a snake. But what would Bhagavan said, no, look at it carefully. Bhagavan, what do you want me to look at? I can see a snake. You want me to, I don't see any rope. Bhagavan would say, no, you need not look at the rope. Just look at the snake very carefully.
So that was my question exactly with this analogy that I was going to ask you. Is, okay, so do I look at my entire body, mind, and identification as a way of antidote?
One who feels this body is I, this mind is I. Who is that I? Who is it? The body is a phenomenon. It's something that appears in our awareness. When we're sleeping, we're not aware of any body. When we're dreaming, we're aware of some other body. So, but now in this waking state, this particular body has appeared in our awareness. But it is something that we're aware of. Though we have a confused identification with it, we confuse this body as if it were ourselves. We can also see this hand, something other than myself. So the whole body is something, it's a phenomenon, it's an object that we're aware of. So we have to go back to who is the subject, who is the one who is aware of this. That's what Bhagavan often said, to whom does this appear? To whom? Who is we have to turn our attention back to the one who is aware. That is ourself. Now that one who is aware seems to be ego, doesn't matter, just look at this ego. Because Bhagavan said, if you look at the ego, you will see that there is no such thing, it is actually only Atma-swarupa, it's actually only Brahman. It is Brahman alone that appears now as this ego. So look at the ego and you'll see Brahman.
Right. In our state, we would not be able to distinguish between the two as a
And doesn't matter whether when you're looking, when you get pluck up the courage to look carefully at that scaring snake on the ground, doesn't matter whether the fact that you've got an idea that it's a snake. Okay, when you've got an idea that it's a snake, you're a little bit cautious, but still when you look there, you see it's not moving. So maybe it's not a snake, and you slowly pluck up courage and go closer, and suddenly you say, oh no, it's not a snake, it's just a rope. What you were seeing all along was only a rope. So what we are experiencing now is only Atma-swarupa, but it seems to be the ego. So long as it seems to be the ego, Bhagavan said, look at that ego, investigate it. So where does it come? Of course it comes, where can the ego come from? It can come only from ourselves. So we are the source of the ego. We're the source of the ego and also the substance of the ego. We're what the ego really is. What the ego really is only Atma-swarupa. It seems to be ego only so long as it's looking elsewhere. If it looks at itself, it disappears, and what remains is Atma-swarupa. Uḷḷadu. It is, Bhagavan's philosophy is so simple. He just, the whole issue is about I. Am I what I seem to be? If not, what am I really? We can only see that by looking very carefully at ourselves, at I. So who am I? That is the beginning and the end of Bhagavan's teachings.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
Umberto, you have a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello,
Yeah.
Michael. Wonder if you can see me there?
Yes, I can see you. Yes, I can see you very well.
Thank you again for being with us. My name is Umberto. I have a question. We know that this world that surrounds us is a creation of our mind.
Yes.
So I understand by that the following. I understand that since it is a creation of our mind, nothing really that we see or we feel really exists. That means if I am talking to somebody, even to Michael James in this case, none of them exist. This is just me talking to myself. And if I am...
So what, I didn't catch your name. What's it again? Your name?
Umberto.
Umberto.
Yes.
Okay. Michael is a projection of your mind. So is Umberto a projection of your mind. You seem to be Umberto, but Umberto is as much a projection as Michael. So long as we are participating in this dream, all the other people in the dream are as real as we are. As real as the person that we take ourselves to be. So Michael is as real as Umberto. But if you investigate yourself and find out what you really are, then you'll find Umberto is real and Michael is equally unreal.
So when we pamper somebody, we're not pampering anybody, and when we are mistreating somebody, nobody's being mistreated at all. Is that the right thing to
no. Okay, sometimes people ask me, if everything is a dream, why should we be compassionate? Why should we be vegetarian or vegan? Why should we care about the suffering of others? If we were indifferent to the suffering of the person we now take ourselves to be, if I didn't care whether Michael was starving, if Michael was in the cold, in the rain, or whatever, if I really didn't care, then I need not care about others. But I care about Michael. I want Michael to be comfortable because I feel I am Michael. When Michael is uncomfortable, I'm uncomfortable. If I'm out in the cold, if I was homeless, sleeping under a bridge or something without a proper sleeping bag in this cold winter, I would be suffering a lot. because I am Michael. Michael is not what I really am, but it's what I seem to be. So long as we are dreaming, we seem to be a person in a dream. And so we care very much about our own well-being as this person. So long as I care about Michael, I should care equally about everyone else. Because if you are suffering, I can't say, oh, it's just someone else. You are as real as I am. You mean, I'm talking now about Umberto, the person. So we should be compassionate. So if we were suffering, supposing we were starving, we would want someone to give us food. So if we see a starving person, we should give them food. We should do as you would be done by. We should treat others as we would want to be treated as ourselves. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Because all the other people in this dream, though they are our mental projection, they are no more a mental projection than the person we take ourselves to be. All people, including the person self to be, are mental projections. So all are as real. So we should be as concerned about the suffering of others as we are about our own suffering. In practice, it's not possible because we know there are many places in the world where people are having to work in sweatshops 18 hours a day. We know there are people who don't have enough food to eat. We know there are terrible wars happening in the Middle East, and people are being bombed, and children and women, and so many innocent people are dying. And there are natural disasters. We hear about earthquakes, we hear about cyclones, we hear about tornadoes, all these things. So many terrible things are happening in the world. We cannot, in practice, concern ourselves about all these things. But at least the immediate suffering we see around us, we should try to alleviate suffering where we can. I mean, I'm not saying we should go out to the world and try to alleviate suffering, because there's so much suffering in the world, obviously we can't. But when we see a starving person and we're eating food, we should share with that starving person. And when we should be aware whatever actions we do in this world have repercussions. Now we live in a very small world. 100 years or 200 years ago, we'd have no idea what was happening on the other side of the world. Now you're on one side of the world, I'm on another side of the world. We're thousands of miles apart, but we're seeing each other, talking about each other. The world has become a very small place. So we know that if we buy from shops that employ people that manufacture clothes in sweatshops, or that we are aware. Supposing we go to a supermarket, we see so much food lined up there. Among all the other food, there's lumps of meat. That seems to us to be just some material people eat. But that lump of meat was actually, a few days ago or a few weeks ago, that was a living being, a being who had desire for life just as we had. So if we buy that meat, or buy that milk is coming from cows who are industrially farmed, and who have a very short life while they're milking productively. As soon as they no longer milk productively, they're slaughtered. Their calves are slaughtered. So when we know all these things are happening, we should avoid buying such things which are causing suffering. So whatever is causing suffering to people or to animals, we should, to the extent possible, we should avoid contributing to that. That is the principle of ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-harming. That is the fundamental moral principle in all the religions of Indian origin. That is what is nowadays called Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism. All are based on it. And all forms of yoga, they're based on this principle. The fundamental moral principle is ahimsa. We should avoid causing harm. There's so much suffering in the world, we can't alleviate all the suffering in the world, but at least we should avoid causing harm. But the best way to avoid causing harm, the ultimate, what is the first harmful deed? The first harmful event that happens, the rising of our self as this ego. Because we rise with this ego, we see this world and we see all this suffering. So we have a root cause for all the suffering we see in the world. If you, in a dream, if we see people suffering, what's the best way of alleviating all the suffering we see in the dream? To wake up. So our first and foremost duty is waking up. That's why Bhagavan says, as far as possible, we should not dwell on the worldly matters, on the matters of the world. Bhagavan said we should, whatever is given to others is given only to oneself. So we should share the good things we have, and we should avoid giving harm to others because we're giving it to ourselves. So we should, to a limited extent, we should work. It doesn't take much effort to avoid causing harm in the world. In fact, we don't actually have to do very much. We just have to avoid doing it. It's no effort to avoid buying meat. It's no effort to avoid buying milk. It's no effort to avoid buying eggs. Because we know these things cause harm, so we avoid them. So we don't actually have to do anything. We just have to refrain from doing something. So a lot of to follow the principle of ahimsa doesn't actually require much attention. We require a little bit of information. We know how meat and all these animal products, we know how they're produced by industrial, we know how much cruelty is there. That's all we need to know. Knowing that, we avoid. So also, whenever we know something we do can directly or indirectly cause harm to people, we avoid it. We are not doing anything, we're just avoiding doing something. So most of our attention, we don't have to be dwelling on all these problems in the world. There's problems in the nature of the world. One problem is solved, another problem crops up. A few hundred years ago, there was slavery in many countries in the world. Now, supposedly, there's no slavery. But slavery is still there in modern form. There's people trafficking, sex trafficking, people are exploited in so many ways. So the symptoms mutate. And so the world is always full of problems. The reason the world is full of problems is there's one ego that rises, and that ego rises and sees egos in everyone around it. And all those egos, they have desires, they have greed, they have anger, they have all these things. So because people have desires, because people are greedy, the world is never going to be a peaceful place. There's always competition between people. We can wish for the world was a happier place, that people would live together peacefully coexist, but people wouldn't hate people just because of the color of their skin or because of their religion or whatever it is. We wish all these things, but in practice, the world is never like that. There's always people always find something to fight about, whether it's about money, whether it's about religion, whether it's about the color of the skin or whatever it is. The world is constant turmoil. There's never been a time in the world where people haven't been fighting among themselves. And even if we were all peacefully cooperating, there's disease, there's natural disasters, there's death, all these things. So the world is not a happy place. Then we may get iotas of happiness here and there, but basically, when we're born in this world, we're born in this world to undergo some experiences, and we're all suffering one way or another. So the world is an imperfect place. Our primary duty is to wake up from this dream. But we shouldn't be completely unmindful of the effects of our actions. So long as we're acting, we avoid actions that cause harm. But the best is not to act at all, just to be.
Thank you very much. Thank you, very clear. Thank you.
More are we done?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Ram has one last question.
Okay, can I just
This may have to go to the floor.
Okay, one more. Okay, one for you, one for him. Okay, I don't want to take too much of Michael's time.
Michael, one of the traps I get in consciously is comparison. I compare with the person above me, mostly people who are above me, materially speaking.
Yeah.
And I do compare people below me too, and the mind is constantly, the mind is the root cause. I know the reason.
Yeah,
I know the culprit here, but constantly it's making those comparisons, and I am swinging in the realm of dualities.
yeah.
Happiness, misery, there's no bliss. I'm
Yeah.
constantly going up and down.
Yeah.
Now, can you expound on how to take care of this comparison issue?
Why you compare yourself with people better off than yourself? Because you're not satisfied with what you've got. It wouldn't really matter. We wouldn't worry about, we wouldn't compare ourselves with people who were more intelligent than us, or people who were richer than us, or people who had a better seemed to have a better destiny than us. If we were satisfied with our own situation, we were fully satisfied. We are all dissatisfied. Dissatisfaction is the nature of the ego. But Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said one very nice thing. The fact that we are all dissatisfied, the fact that we can never be satisfied with anything finite, proves that we are infinite. Because we are the infinite reality, we can never be satisfied with anything less than ourselves, anything less than our real self. So dissatisfaction is the very nature of the ego, because we are the one infinite Brahman. We contracted ourselves as this little person. And the little person, we see so many things, so many nice things that we would like to have. We'd like to have a bigger house, we'd like to have a better car, we'd like to have we wish our family were more, were doing better. There's always so many things where we find reason not to be satisfied. This is because nothing can satisfy us. Even if we were, we had all the money. See, take Donald Trump. Do you think Donald Trump is a happy man? He's got billions of dollars. He's become the most powerful man in the world. He can drop an atom bomb and destroy the whole world if he wants. Everything is in his hand. Do you think he's a happy man? I don't. If he was a happy man, he'd be hating so many people. He would be kind and compassionate if he was happy. He's actually a desperately unhappy man. That's why he's hating everyone. So it doesn't matter. And also, I was talking to someone yesterday who was talking about J.R. Anita, who passed away. She was such a powerful politician for so many years. But however rich, however powerful you may be, we're all going to die one day. So none of these things, they're all just shadows. None of them are real. None of them is worth, it's not worth aspiring for these things. But because we have risen as this ego, we are dissatisfied, we're always looking for something. We're looking for wealth, or we're looking for health, or even if we've lost desire for wealth and for material well-being, we still want intellectual pleasure, we still want kindness and affection, we want our family to love us, we want our friends to love us, we want to be, with so many things. None of us are really satisfied. There's always something we feel things would be better if it was different. If things were different, we'd be more happy. If we had a bit more money, if we had a bit more something. It's just the nature of the ego. And as Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, that is because we are that Paripurna Brahman, we cannot be satisfied with anything less than being what we actually are.
Thank you. Very well said. I appreciate it, Michael.
Yeah, that was fine.
You can't see you from there.
Hi, Michael.
Hi.
My name is Keva. I am originally from Bali.
Right.
I had two questions here. One, maybe it's a silly question. What is it so special about the self?
Do you not think you're rather special? Are you not more concerned about your own happiness than you are concerned about other people's happiness? We may say we love our wife, we love our children, we love our parents, all these things, Why do we love them? We love them because they're kind and loving to us. If they weren't so kind and loving, if they weren't giving us what we wanted, our love for them would diminish. We say we love God, so long as we think God is caring for us. But if we thought God was just giving us trouble, we begin to think, what a useless God. So Bhagavan says that what we all have greatest love for is for ourselves. But you asked the question, you said, what is so great about the self? When you say the self, you're pointing out, if you were to ask me what's so great about oneself, well, we all think we're great. I mean, we all value ourselves above all else. But when you say the self, it's as if you're talking about something else. Supposing I was arrested for some crime. Supposing I'd done some shoplifting and I was taken to court. And if I said, no, it wasn't me, it was the self who did it, it would be as if I'm putting the blame on someone else. But if I say, it wasn't me, it was myself who did it, it means I'm admitting I'm guilty. I'm admitting my guilt. Well, if we talk about the self, it's as if we're talking about something other than ourselves. But there is no self other than ourselves. We are what we call the self. It's actually in Tamil and Sanskrit, there's no word the self, because there's no definite article. You can, in some circumstances, very rarely you can say this self or that self, but normally, like in Tamil, the word most often used for self is tam. Tam simply means oneself. So also the Sanskrit word atma, it means oneself. It doesn't mean the self, but in English books, for some reason, this habit of translating it as the self, that makes it abstract, something distant from us. But it's not the self, it's our self. There's no self other than ourself. So we all value ourselves. But why do we value the person that we seem to be? Because we mistake ourselves to be this person. I now seem to be Michael, so I take Michael to be myself, and so I value Michael above all else. But if we know what we really are, then we will find that we are the sole reality. Then we will not see anything, that we won't see any difference between myself and others. And then our love, how Bhagavan had love for all who came to him. Because he saw no difference between himself and others. He didn't have that sense of this little body called Ramana Maharshi is myself. Well, once when someone, when a visitor came to the ashram and was asking where Bhagavan is, Bhagavan was at that time working in the kitchens. And so when that person was asking, where's Bhagavan? Oh, where's Ramana? That person was asking. They said, oh, he's there in the kitchens. And when he came in there, Bhagavan was cleaning some pots or pans or something, doing something there. And when he came in, he seen Bhagavan, he asked, where's Ramana? Bhagavan pointed to a big brass vessel and said, there's Ramana. Because on that brass vessel it was carved Ramana. And then that person said, what do you mean? He thought Bhagavan was just some person working there and was having fun with him. So he said, why didn't I want to see Ramana, where is Ramana? And then everyone said, this is Bhagavan here. And then he said, Bhagavan, why did you point me to a vessel? Bhagavan said, this body doesn't have Ramana carved on it, but that has Ramana carved on it.
Okay, Madhav, the second question.
Okay.
The second question. In some of your book, you mentioned that the self knows nothing other than itself, while we believe that God is all-knowing. Now, how do you reconcile this seemingly two contradictory statements?
Because what is all? All that actually exists is God. So when God is all-knowing, he knows himself. He doesn't know anything other than himself. If there's something other than ourselves, then all means all these many things. But according to Bhagavan, what actually exists is only ourselves. If we know ourselves, we know everything. Because we are everything. There is no everything other than ourselves. But everything, so long we see all this world, all these phenomena, we think there are many things. In Bhagavan's experience, there are not many things, there's only one thing. There's only himself.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Okay, there's something that people often get confused. Sorry, do you want me to stop or can I continue? Can I just say one more?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
One thing that people are often confused about is whether Bhagavan is aware of the world or not. Because sometimes Bhagavan says things that make it seem that he's not aware of anything. At other times, but at the same time, people who were living with Bhagavan, they saw Bhagavan is getting up in the morning, he's helping in the kitchen, he's answering questions, he's doing so many things. So they think, how can it be that Bhagavan isn't aware of the world? But Bhagavan said, the jnani is like a sleeper in a cart. When a bullock cart is moving, if someone's sleeping in that bullock cart, they're not aware of whether the cart is moving, whether the bullocks are standing still, or whether the bullocks are unyoked. Because they're sleeping in the... Bhagavan says the jnani is... the body of the jnani is like a cart, and the jnani is sleeping in that cart. So the jnani is not aware of the activities of the body, or the sleep, or anything like that. We cannot grasp that because we take the jnani to be a person. The jnani is not a person. Jnani is ourself. Bhagavan sometimes used to say, there is only one jnani, and you are that. Sorry, did you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's only one jnani, you are that. So we see so many people in this world, and we think this person is an ajnani, this person is an ajnani, but this person is a jnani. This is our own ignorance, seeing so many people. And sometimes Bhagavan said, so just to give a simple analogy, if we say but a certain person sees a snake, sees a rope as a snake, that means that what that person is actually seeing is a snake, but what they think they're seeing is a rope. But what that person is actually seeing is a rope, but what they think they're seeing is a snake. But if we say that another person sees the snake as a rope, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that they're actually seeing a rope. It doesn't mean that they're actually seeing a snake. What they're seeing is only a rope, and they recognize that the rope is a rope. So seeing the snake as a rope actually means just seeing the rope, and knowing that it is not a snake but only a rope. So also when it is sometimes said that the jnani sees the world as himself, that doesn't mean that the jnani is actually seeing the world. It means the jnani is seeing only himself. What we see as the world, what we mistake to be the world, is what the jnani sees as himself.
That's only oneself.
Is that clear?
Yeah, so the jnani just sees only oneself.
He sees only himself.
Only himself.
But we see the jnani as a body, and in that body is a mind, and that body is answering our questions and everything. So we assume that person whom we call Ramana Maharshi, we assume that person is what Bhagavan really is. But Bhagavan says, I am not this body. I am not what you take me to be. I am not what I seem to be. I am yourself. I think this probably happened quite often in various different forms. I'll just tell one story. There was a lady devotee called Janaki Mata. Once when she came to Bhagavan, he was just returning from Gosala, the cow, the place where the cows live. And she came to him and she fell at his feet and held his feet. And Bhagavan asked her, what are you doing? She said, I'm holding the feet of my Guru. He said, this is, the feet of your Guru are shining within you as I. Hold those feet. These feet are perishable. The feet that are shining within you as I, those are the unperishable feet of the Guru. Cling to those feet if you want to be saved. So Bhagavan was constantly turning people away from giving attention to his outward form, and he wanted people to see their own reality. When he was once asked whether he was Muruga or Shiva, or that different people had the idea about he's an incarnation of this god or that god. When he was asked, he answered, Ariyati Tarajivara Dahavari Jagoheo Arivairami Paramatuman Arunachala Ramana. That means Arunachala Ramana is the Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, that is rejoicing or reveling as Arivu, as pure awareness, in the hearts of all living beings from Vishnu downwards. So Bhagavan is our own soul. The outward form we see as Bhagavan, of course, because that outward form has appeared to give us teachings, we have greatest reverence and love for that outward form. But that is not the real form of Bhagavan. If we really love Bhagavan, we should meditate on his real form, which is I, which is our soul. Bhagavan is our soul. So by turning our attention inwards, we are really meditating on Bhagavan.
That's the best way to meditate on Bhagavan.
Exactly. So we come back at last where we started.
Right.
So who can meditate on uḻḷaporuḻ?
Right.
Only by doing that as it is, we can. One other thing I wanted to say earlier, we were talking, that is, we started off with this verse, which is talking only about uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu, about Sat and Chit, about what really exists. And while discussing it, we have gone to discuss so many things in the world, so many. This is Maya. This is how we come to Bhagavan teaching. We're interested in Bhagavan teaching. We come to his higher teaching, and then we start getting so many questions about the world, about this and about that, so many things. This is because our minds are outward going. We are constantly are. I mean, we can see this in ourselves. I'm not pointing out to anyone, because I am as much like this as anyone else. We are all, our mind, the very nature of the mind, the very nature of the ego is to be going outwards, to be going towards multiplicity. But Bhagavan is trying to turn us in the opposite direction, away from all this multiplicity, to who sees all this multiplicity? Who has all these problems? Who is asking all these questions? I'm not saying the questions we ask are useless. They are useful questions, but they're useful only if we bring them back to what is the core of Bhagavan's teaching, which is who is asking this? Why are we asking these questions? We're asking these questions because we're not satisfied. Who is not satisfied? Who is this one? So the whole aim of Bhagavan's teaching is to turn our attention back towards ourselves. We will be constantly failing. Our attention will be constantly coming out again and again. But however many times it comes out, we just have to persevere in turning it back within again and again and again. That is all. That's what Bhagavan's teaching is all about.
That's good. Well, thank you so much, Michael. I think this is a great session.
I think we were meant to go on only up till, I think we run over our time, but I hope you don't mind that.
Oh, no problem at all. And we don't mind as long as you don't mind.
We're grateful. We are lucky.
I am the worst follower of Bhagavan. Bhagavan has said the real teaching is silence. And I am the last one to keep silent. I keep on talking. As if I know all about Bhagavan's teaching. But I'm only displaying my ignorance by talking too much.
Have you ever taught in silence, Michael?
What?
Have you ever taught in silence?
The only time I know silence is when I'm sleeping.
But if you say that, you who have been immersed in it and have been dedicated your life to it, where is the hope for somebody like me who's just dabbling in this or wanting to know more? Like if even people like you say it seems hopeless.
Why do you think I'm any better than you? I'm still dabbling.
That's what I mean. So where is the hope if we're all just dabblers and nobody's really abiding in the self? It seems all like just a fairy tale. It doesn't seem to be real.
We're coming back to a problem one of our other friends was asking about comparison. We're always comparing ourselves with others. But when you compare yourself with me, you are seeing me only externally, what I appear to be. But what I really am is, I'm a very imperfect devotee of Bhagavan, I can say. I like to follow his teachings. I try to follow his teachings. I think of his teachings a lot. But in spite of so many years, because of my own immaturity, I'm still just a beginner in the path. Other people may not have had the good fortune that I've had. I was fortunate to be with Sadhuam for so many years, to have lived in Tiruvannamalai for 20 years, and to have been able to spend a lot of my time, of my life, thinking about these things, translating Bhagavan's works, writing about them and everything. This is a great good fortune. Possibly Bhagavan knew that I'm such a... Sadhuam used to say that the patients who are inpatients in the hospital, who are getting most attention from the doctor, are the ones who are most seriously ill. Those who come as... Sadhuam used to say this in the context of people who came to him and said, oh, you were fortunate, you were with Bhagavan, but we've got family and we've got so many concerns and we can come to Tiruvannamalai only once in a while. He used to say, well, you're fortunate, you're just outpatients. That means your case is not so serious. But people like us, we are the inpatients, so we're the really serious cases.
Wow. Well, I hope you get out of the ICU
being
soon.
Humble.
So we can't compare ourselves with others. The thing is,
that's the point.
we see ourselves as a little person and we compare ourselves with others. In this way, we are going against what Bhagavan taught us. Bhagavan said, see what you really are. You mistake yourself to be this person. You mistake yourself to be this little ego with all its dissatisfaction. But who is the one who is dissatisfied? See that. Who is the one who compares himself or herself with other people?
That's what I mean. Is it possible to see that? Because I have yet to see someone or something, aside from reading it in books, have a real life experience of someone who has seen that for themselves. Is it just for the books or is it a reality?
Even if we see someone and we think this person has seen it, this person is a jnani or whatever, that is just our idea about that person. When we mistake a person to be when we say this person is a jnani, what we are saying is, Bhagavan used to say, jnana mein jnani. That is, jnana itself is the jnani. The jnani is not a person, it's not a human form. The jnani is that supreme reality itself. So when we see that jnani as a person, we are just superimposing our own ignorance upon it. Because jnani is actually Parabrahman itself. So it's only our own ignorance, all this comparison, all this idea of this person is a jnani, this person is an ajnani. For all you know, the person who's working behind the till in the In the checkout in your supermarket could be a jnani. How do you know?
No, you're right, absolutely. But Bhagavan was embodied in his name and form, and he was in his physical reality. We can't deny that people did have experiences in the presence of Bhagavan's body and form, right?
But having experiences is not why we come to Bhagavan. Bhagavan is who is the one who is having all these experiences. If we come and have wonderful experiences, that's again our own experience. Any experience we have is something other than ourselves. We want to see the only thing that's worth experiencing is what we ourselves are. Experiences that come and go are not real. The only real experience is experience of ourselves. So only by knowing what we ourselves are, that's why we've come to Bhagavan. It's not to have wonderful experiences, to feel peace or whatever. People describe so many wonderful experiences they had in the presence. That is not the reason why we come to Bhagavan. These are all just distractions. Any experience we can describe in words is a form of ajnana. It's just another experience of the ego, another projection of the ego. What we need to know is what are we? We need to see ourselves, not see anything else.
Moreover, the memory, the incident related to Kunjaswami comes to my mind. He was having all these experiences, and then he goes back, he thinks he can do it himself, and then he goes back to Kerala, and nothing happens, basically. And then when he comes back and says this to Bhagavan basically asks you to read something, and basically the message is the same. You have to look at yourself. You really want to know yourself, you got to look at yourself. There's no way out. There's no shortcut. Just because you're hanging around me, it's just not going to be enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff has a question.
It's a profound question, Michael. Can we call you back sometime?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, Michael is going to be with us once a month at least.
Merry Christmas.
Awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely awesome.
Right, Michael?
We have done one verse uḷḷadu today. We've got to do another 41 verses.
Oh.
We're going to
Many more Christmases to come.
We're going to have...
And you'll be fed up with me. You'll think this person is saying the same thing again and again and again and again.
Well, we need to hear it again and again and again and again.
I think the question was whether he could make a personal phone call.
No, this group. Yeah, he's talking about this. I didn't.
Private phone call or something.
I didn't share with the group what we had discussed, Michael. That Michael and I myself talked last week, actually earlier this week, and that we're going to have this. We're going to basically finish the whole of uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, one verse at a time.